Welcome to the Dipshit Files number 10. I am the script keeper.
And I'm Mrs. Script Keeper.
And we have ourselves a fucking crazy show for you guys.
Yes, we do.
We have another female psycho.
Yeah.
And she ranks high as fuck on our dipshit meter list.
She does.
And she only killed one person.
Yeah.
But yet she, on our meter, according to our scale, is higher than Ed Kemper and Jeffrey Dahmer. And we've met Linda Hazard through here, and she killed hundreds of people. And one person she killed, her name is Katherine Knight. But she's up there right behind Joachim Kroll, Pedro Lopez, and Albert Fish.
Yes.
So we're going to open up another dipshit file, and we've got a doozy for you this week.
Dipshit Files.
All right, so another exciting episode of the Dipshit Files.
Yeah, this one was...
Or sad or horrific.
This one was really... it was a rough research for me.
Katherine Knight, and I know no one's really ever heard that name. You have to be pretty in the true crime world
right.
to know this person.
This individual isn't from the U.S.
Right. That doesn't help.
She's from Australia.
Crocky.
But, this was a tough one for me because although she only actually murdered one human, the way she did it was fucking incomprehensible. I don't know how else to put it.
And the other thing that makes this weird is that she's responsible for the deaths of thousands of life forms.
Yes.
Earthlings.
Yeah.
And we'll get to that.
Yeah, and part of you'll see, part of her...
It was her job. I mean, it wasn't, she wasn't evil, so...
Yeah, and we'll go into that, but this woman...
She was evil.
She's technically considered a psychopath. She is a female psychopath.
Oh, yeah.
And, yeah. So
and spoiler alert, cannibal.
Yeah.
So, you guys knew that coming in.
Hooray.
She's going to eat this person. So, but I got to tell you guys, I think a lot of times in true crime, we get kind of caught up in the amount of people that are killed by serial killers.
Yep.
But this one case was such a big deal in Australia that it's still infamous there.
It's still infamous.
But it went around the world, one murder.
Yeah.
That's so rare for that kind of thing. So this is going to be one of those...
See, and these stories aren't always about the sheer number. It's about, in my opinion, when I write these scripts, it's not just about the sheer number of murders.
Right.
It's about the intent behind it.
And the story, too. This is a crazy story.
This is a crazy story.
We're going to go through...
She went through... She's such a you'll see, cruel individual. The story itself... just the depths of her depravity.
Yeah, we're not going to give you the meter score yet, but we'll just say very high scores in brutality, cruelty, and I mean just all of them really. Her criminal mind wasn't super high. Her depravity was super high. Obviously, eating people is the top of depravity.
This woman was a piece of work.
So on today's show, we're going to go through her entire life. She's got several dudes that she ruined their lives, and I'm sure they were great too. I don't know anything about the story, as always, but we're going to go through her childhood and through her career as an animal slaughterer. That's
and what they call an abattoir.
Abattoir. I'd never heard that word until this
I didn't either.
So
I learned some terrible things.
Absolutely. And that at the end of this, we're going to show you why she is so fucking high on our dipshit meter. And it's going to be crazy. And then we'll do our conclusions.
Yep.
So let's learn about her.
Katherine Knight. What a dipshit.
So today on the Dipshit Files, we meet the woman who committed a crime so barbaric it shocked the world and brought the worst kind of fame to the small town of Aberdeen.
Crocky dick slapper.
Following years of brutal attacks, Katherine committed a murder that's almost incomprehensible.
Translation, very icky.
Katherine Mary Knight, born October 24th, 1955, is the first Australian woman to be sentenced to life imprisonment without parole.
And how?
She was convicted for the murder of her partner, John Charles Thomas Price, in February of 2000, and is currently imprisoned at the Silverwater Women's Correctional Center in New South Wales. Knight stabbed Price to death, skinned him, put his skin on a meat hook. She then cooked his head and parts of his body with the intention of feeding them to Price's children.
Fucking Cartman.
But she was stopped by the police. This is one of the most distressing and disturbing murders ever committed in Australia. In fact, it's notorious around the world, not just for its gruesome brutality, but because it was committed by a rare individual.
A Sheila devil.
A female psychopath. However, in an attempt to understand how Katherine Knight could commit such a terrible act, we need to understand where she came from.
Mm-hmm. So let's dig into this Dipshit Files.
Dipshit story time.
This story takes place in New South Wales at the Upper Hunter Valley in coal mining and cattle country. At the heart of the story is the abattoir Aberdeen Meatworks, the town's call to glory for more than 100 years. An abattoir is similar to a slaughterhouse. A pure slaughterhouse will just do the dispatch of animals. Some of these places will process horses, for example, with no intent of it entering any form of the food supply. An abattoir, however, does slaughter and meat processing. By the time an animal has gone through it, it has been reduced to carcasses, bones, offal, which is O-F-F-A-L, although it is awful, blood, and skin.
It's funny because it sounds French, so I imagine it is French. It sounds less horrible.
Right. Right.
I don't know why. I'm sure the root word in French is like murderous death of cow, but it sounds like
right.
Don't worry about the cow; it will be fine.
And we're going to go through a little bit of an explanation, a little more in depth from an abattoir worker.
Yeah.
I deleted 90% of it because I had to read it, and I couldn't. I might be a vegetarian now.
I don't. Right.
Just saying.
A lot of these things do that. So one of my best friends, two of my best friends, they're brothers. They. Ironic, I guess, or serendipity today, synchronicity. I don't know. Some of those words. I went to the meat place to get my favorite pepperoni sticks. I've been eating them since I was about 7 years old, and I keep going back to this one place. But he's like, I look at these animals all day, and if it wasn't for the fact that if I didn't work here for 30 years, I would be a vegetarian. And I thought that was funny, too. That's coming from a guy that's done meat stuff for 30 years.
Right. Well,
we raise chickens, and I have a hard time looking at a chicken nugget the same way. Because chickens are smart. Yeah. They are sweet and they are cute.
Yeah, they are.
And I did not, when you're looking at a chicken sandwich, you're like, that's not sweet, smart, and cute. That's fucking delicious. But I think if we did the math together, it makes it. So anyway.
So in the 1940s, Jack Rowan was the manager of the abattoir. He was married to Barbara and they had 4 sons. It was a huge scandal, though, when Barbara ran off with another abattoir worker, Ken Knight. Ken and Barbara had 4 more children, 2 boys and 2 girls, and among them was Katherine Mary Knight, born October 24th in 1955, at Tamworth Hospital just a half an hour after her twin sister, Joy.
Okay, I can't help but do this with the Knight as the last name.
Katherine Knight, a sadistic, psychotic bitch. She's a dipshit.
Sorry.
It is stated that back then, abattoir workers were hard people. Quote-unquote hard people.
Right.
They were nomadic, and the children often grew up in abusive families. Katherine and Joy were toddlers when their mother's first husband died, leaving Barbara to raise 8 children on her own.
Oh, thank you.
Katherine changed schools a lot throughout her educational years, and she was very close to her sister Joy, but she didn't have a lot of close friends. Katherine was known to be an insecure child and didn't make friends easily. She had a terrible temper, but she was also extremely shy. Katherine craved her mother's love and affection, even though she claims Barbara frequently beat her.
Humans are great.
Ken Knight was an alcoholic who openly used violence and intimidation and would rape his wife Barbara up to 10 times a day.
Yeesh.
However, according to family members, Katherine's mother Barbara wasn't meek nor mild-mannered and fought back just as hard. Barbara, in turn, often told her daughters intimate details about her sex life and how much she hated sex and men. Katherine grew up watching her father brutally rape her mother on a regular basis.
Jesus.
It was never hidden, and Knight claims that she was frequently sexually assaulted by several members of her family, though never by her father, which continued until she was at about the age of 11. Although there are doubts about the details, psychiatrists accept her claims, and the events have been largely confirmed by other members of the family. Later, when Katherine Knight complained to her mother that one of her partners wanted her to take part in a sex act she didn't want to perform, Barbara told her daughter to put up with it and stop complaining.
Jesus.
By the age of 3 or 4, something would have already hardened within Katherine.
Yeah, fuck.
She knew no one was going to come rescue her, so she had to learn to either fight or hide.
At 3 or 4? Mm-hmm. What the fuck, dude?
Obviously, very young children can't fight back. So when they're under severe threat, some will do what they call dissociate.
Right.
This is more or less like circuit tripping. Katherine was overwhelmed and she mentally disconnected. But while she was in that state, she was missing out on developing a range of emotions that make us human, like love, happiness, joy, empathy.
Mm-hmm. So she's just been traumatized terribly before she's even old enough to fucking draw a picture that makes sense.
Oh, it gets worse.
Yeah.
Katherine grew up with a deep-seated fear of sexual assault, understandably, and was forever claiming that men had abused her. At school, she was known for her sudden and violent temper. A former classmate recalls Katherine turning on her sister, Joy. It was an argument about whose turn it was to ride the bicycle home. Now, most sisters in this situation, they might pull hair.
Yeah.
They're going to pinch or slap each other, maybe scream or cry or whatever. However, these two girls beat the crap out of each other with their fists.
A couple of apples.
In the dirt.
From fucked up trees.
At 15, Katherine left Musselwell Brook High School, and she could barely read or write. To her,
she was busy whooping ass.
Her only aspiration in life was to work at the abattoir. She wanted to follow the life of her brothers and her father, her grandparents, her mother. Everyone she knew and respected had worked at the abattoir.
I get that. Family business stuff. You end up just doing what you know.
Following along.
Yeah.
At 16, she landed her dream job. She began in the awful room and later became a boner.
14-year-old boy brain engaged.
For clarity, right? I know.
Well, the French word throws you off, though, because they start giving you some shit. The awful room. Make sure you go into the boner room next. This is a good place to work.
For clarity about awful, okay, the definition is the waste or byproduct of a process, such as trimmings, the belly, head, and shoulders when it comes to slaughtering, or the hide, or the byproducts of milling, such as wheat or barley, used especially for stock feeds. Okay, so this is a slaughterhouse. So at slaughter, carcasses were eviscerated, and the internal organs are divided into green and red offal. Green offal includes stomach, intestines, and additional parts of the digestive tract, while red offal includes heart, kidneys, lungs, and liver.
And it all just gets made into hot dogs.
Now, I know this sounds awful,
Waka waka.
but let's get to know a bit about an abattoir so we know where Katherine comes from.
Okay.
Now, this is an excerpt, a tiny, because I got rid of most of it.
I know you did.
A tiny excerpt from a modern-day abattoir worker in 2017. Now, this is a solid quote. Just like a hospital has a distinctive smell, slaughterhouses and abattoirs smell like warm blood. There's iron in the air all the time. Even over the bleach, you can still smell it. You hear stories of people throwing up on their first day or freaking out and leaving right away. But most know what they're getting into. These are rough jobs, so while they're all good, honest guys who work in slaughterhouses, they kill things for a living. You have to have a bit of a different mindset to do this job.
I bet.
I grew up in the Lake District of Northwest England, so I was hunting my whole life, and I was used to having my own farm, and I'd butcher my own animals. It was an early start, 4:30 a.m., and an early finish, 2 p.m., and that suits me.
All right, I'm opposite that guy.
There are always two parts inside a slaughterhouse, a clean side and a dirty side. Animals have to go through the dirty side first before they can go where they're going to be prepared for human consumption. The dirty side is where all the internals, hair, and skin is removed.
Yikes.
I couldn't put the rest in because I didn't want to damage our listeners.
Right, or me.
So it kind of gives you an idea. Aberdeen Meatworks workers would kill and bone 600 animals a day on average.
Fuck.
Yes.
Well, people eating. Mm-hmm. It's a lot of eating people.
Katherine was in her element.
Control.
The best part about the job was that she was given her own set of knives. This is what she thought. Blades that soon became her most prized possession. There was something disturbing about the way Katherine loved to work, though.
Because she's a psycho.
Other workers spoke of her
being a psycho,
nicking arteries just to watch the animals bleed.
Jeez.
They found her before the animals got the bolt
to the head, yeah.
Which I removed, but
Right.
how they actually killed the animals. They were finding her in the pens with the animals, nicking those arteries
Evil.
before they were even dead.
Gross.
So she could listen to them scream.
Okay.
Yeah, so she scared her coworkers.
Yeah, psycho.
She took sort of a malevolent pleasure in death.
Katherine Knight, a total psycho bitch who took malevolent pleasure in death.
Sorry about that.
Catherine's pathological profile means she would also have had many fantasies about killing people. That's just the way that works.
Well, we all do. But when you add it to the fact that you're
Right.
putting knife to vein.
Fortunately,
And the psycho thing.
for those around her, her bloodlust was partially satisfied at the abattoir.
Psycho got a psycho.
The abattoir was her killing field, and Catherine got a twisted thrill from the screaming and the blood of the animals that were being put to death.
Well, fuck her.
She would also have loved the fear she instilled in others who watched her and saw that nothing could faze her.
Well, that's not the sign of the simple mind.
She would often take parts of the animals home with her, unbeknownst to her co-workers or her manager.
Crikey, Kathy, what'd you got there? Oh, just a pig skull and a cow dick. Right then, Chippy, have a good day.
I'm sorry about my accent.
When she wasn't at work, Catherine was spending time with the new man in town, Dave Kellett, also known by the nickname Shorty.
Dumb.
Knight first met co-worker Dave Stanford Kellett in 1973.
Worst day ever.
Kellett engaged in heavy drinking, which stemmed from two traumatic incidents from his previous railway job in Coffs Harbour. First, when his best friend was killed in front of him in a shunting accident,
14-year-old boy brain engaged.
A shunting accident really sounds like something happened to his dick.
and later when he rescued injured occupants from a school bus in Kempsey, which had been struck by a train, killing 6 children. He eventually lost the job due to deteriorating behavior and performance, but he soon got to work at the nearby Aberdeen Abattoir and became close friends with Knight's brother. Often, if Kellett got into a fight, Knight would step in and back him up with her fists.
She give a punchy right in a kangaroo's face.
In Aberdeen, she was well known for physically threatening anyone who upset her.
Okay, that's normal.
Catherine stood about a head taller than Dave, and it is believed that he was Catherine's first sexual partner. But once they dove into a relationship, they lost themselves, and it wasn't long before Dave woke up one morning realizing that he was going to be married.
Oh.
Knight married Kellett in 1974 at her request, with the couple arriving at the service on her motorcycle with a very intoxicated Kellett at the altar.
Okay.
As soon as they arrived, Knight's mother, Barbara, gave Kellett some advice. Get this. This is a quote from Dave. The old girl, meaning Knight's mother, said to me to watch out. You better watch this one or she'll fucking kill you.
I see.
Stir her up the wrong way or do the wrong thing and you're fucked.
Sounds good.
Don't ever think of cheating on her. She'll fucking kill you. And that was her mother talking. She told me she's got something loose. She said her daughter's got a screw loose somewhere.
What colour flag would you say that is?
On the wedding
And
day.
on the wedding day. And she was right.
That's, you don't listen to those things at your own peril.
So the violence was announced on the wedding night when David woke up with Catherine attempting to choke him.
On the night of the wedding?
She was furious that they hadn't had sex 5 times. Because Catherine had been told that her parents had sex 5 times on their wedding night, and she assumed that that was normal.
I'll just go ahead and speak for all the dudes listening. It's not.
Evidently, so was her violent response.
Choking out a guy.
So David had fallen asleep after 2 rounds, and she tried to fucking kill him.
Dude.
I know.
Babe, what's the problem?
You're supposed to fuck me more.
Babe, but I just have a normal dick. It's just a normal dick.
Time to die.
The first time he took 18-year-old Catherine home to meet the family, they were a bit surprised.
Another flag.
They thought the pair was a bit mismatched physically, as she was so tall. But they appeared to be in love, and the family just settled in with the idea that opposites attract and wish them the best.
Yeah. Ignore the psycho shit.
David's sister Sandy moved in with a couple in Aberdeen for a few months, and the 2 women became close. Catherine was still working at the abattoir, and Sandy thought she was a very sweet woman.
Wrong.
The 2 got along...
Slitting fucking necks and shit.
Right. Well, the 2 got along very well most of the time.
Usually wrong.
Catherine was married to David, although Sandy did state there was always something about Catherine's
Psychotic disposition.
family that seemed unsettling. She sensed a strangeness about them, something a bit
Psycho.
rough around the edges is what she called it. The most concerning thing about Catherine was her rapid mood changes.
So far.
She could be extremely happy, walking around the house, humming and singing, and the next minute she would just fly into a rage. When Catherine was angry, it was stated that she got this strength about her. She became so strong that she could have picked David up and thrown him across the room.
Katherine angry.
Katherine had already begun...
Somebody needs a Snickers, huh?
Don't condescend to Katherine, cock.
Katherine had already begun threatening people with her treasured knives, which were never far from her reach. David told his family to just avoid her when she's mad, because if she picked up a knife, it was too late to get out of her way.
What?
Yeah.
That's her husband.
Mm-hmm.
He's having regrets.
By her 20th birthday, Katherine was pregnant and highly suspicious of her husband, who had found himself with a new girlfriend.
One that only tried to stab him sometimes.
David wasn't a very loyal husband and admitted later that he had pretty poor morals for that period of his life. He was young, and it's suspected that he wasn't always comfortable at home anyways. Yeah.
He was also shit at judging character for somebody to marry.
Katherine and David's child Melissa was born on the 11th of May, 1976.
And that child did not win the parent lottery that day.
6 weeks later, Katherine attempted to stab her husband with a broken beer bottle.
Not the winner. Yay.
Sick of his wife's psychotic behavior, David ran away to Queensland with his new girlfriend, having no idea of the lengths his wife would go to punish him for leaving.
Oh, boy.
I'm going to get you for not loving me the way I deserve.
In July 1976, 20-year-old Katherine Knight was furious that her husband of 2 years had recently abandoned her, leaving Katherine with their 2-month-old baby.
Murderously furious.
Katherine was obsessively jealous, and knowing David had run off with another woman sent her right over the edge.
That sounds like Kathy.
Katherine was seen walking down Main Street of Aberdeen, swinging the baby buggy violently from one side of the sidewalk to the other.
What?
She was still in her pajamas. Her hair was a mess. She was screaming and crying. She was a mad woman, and it looked like at one point she was going to push the buggy into oncoming traffic.
And the baby was in the buggy?
Yep.
What the fuck, bro?
The police were called, and Katherine was admitted to St. Elmo's Psychiatric Hospital in Tamworth. She was treated with antidepressants and sent home after a couple weeks, but there was still no sign of David, and her rage hadn't subsided. Katherine's mental health was continuing to deteriorate. One day, totally unaware she was being watched by Lorna Driscoll, the owner of the corner store, Katherine placed 12-week-old Melissa on the railroad tracks and walked away.
What the fuck?
Yeah. The southbound train was due to arrive at any minute. A man named Ted Abram, rescued the baby from the tracks just before the train arrived. It was a harrowing moment in his life, he would state later.
It's a southbound train, baby on the tracks. Ted Abram looking up, hey, what's that? It's a baby. Oh, it's a baby on the tracks, yeah. Kathy ain't coming back. It was a harrowing moment in his life.
Meanwhile, Katherine left and ran to a house just up the road, entering the backyard. She then grabbed an axe and began swinging it around over her head, running into town, threatening people, all the people she saw,
Jesus,
threatening their lives. Katherine was taken back to the same psychiatric ward at St. Elmo's Hospital, but checked herself out the next day.
I'm fine.
Less than 24 hours after that, she snapped again.
Uh-oh.
She went to a neighbor's house and knocked on the door, telling them that her baby was sick and she needed a ride to the hospital.
I'm sure this will go smoothly.
The neighbor family agreed to help her, and Katherine went home. The woman and her children quickly drove to Katherine's house and found her extremely agitated. One of the daughters went in the house with Katherine to help get Melissa out of the crib and grab her diaper bag. Mm-hmm. But instead of grabbing the baby and rushing out the door, Katherine produced a knife and began chasing the teenage girl out of the house.
Holy help.
Outside, Katherine got a hold of the girl and slashed her face.
Whoa.
Then she took the whole family hostage and said she wanted them to drive her to David Callett's mother's house.
Oh, God.
Her plan was to kill David's mother.
Well,
she knew a surefire way to get a man's attention was to go after his mom.
This person needs to learn how to break up better.
The woman escaped
Good.
after they stopped at a gas station, but by the time the police arrived, Knight had taken the young boy hostage and was threatening him with a knife.
No.
She was disarmed when the police attacked her with brooms. I thought that was kind of funny.
How do you want us to handle this, Sergeant? This is going to take a specific tool to solve this problem. Tear gas? No. Rubber bullets? Nope. Batons? Bring me all the broomsticks in the police station.
And was admitted to Morissette Psychiatric Hospital. Again.
Hey, Judy, nice to see you again.
Knight told the nurses she intended to kill the mechanic at the service station because he repaired Kellett's car,
okay.
which had allowed him to leave.
Oh,
and
boy.
then her plan was to kill both her husband and his mother when she arrived in Queensland.
She's stopping by all the restaurants.
Did you feed this man coffee? I'll kill you.
Again, she wasn't charged. Again, she was shipped off to a mental institution.
And then she checked herself out again because the soup was bad.
Katherine uses violence and fear to intimidate people into doing exactly what she wants. She's seen it done in her own family, and she's carrying on the tradition. But while Katherine's rage is at times spontaneous, at other times, she's coldly calculating. Katherine enjoys seeing people terrified of her unpredictability, and she's amused by their fear. Yeah.
Psycho.
In Queensland, things weren't working out for David and his now pregnant girlfriend. When David heard what had happened with Katherine back in Aberdeen, he called his mother, and they decided to go back and take her from the psychiatric institution. Knight was released on August 9th, 1976, into the care of her mother-in-law, Florence.
Good luck.
The following day, David drove his wife and mother to Aberdeen to pick up baby Melissa. This was only the second time Florence had ever seen Katherine's mother, Barbara.
Also psycho.
Katherine's mother came out of the house,
Psychotically.
walked up to the car where she proceeded to reach through the window
Like normal folk do.
and strangle David.
Whoa.
David's mother was screaming, and David could do nothing but grip the steering wheel.
Die, fucker.
David's mother was deeply shaken, as she had never seen people behave like this in her life.
Wow.
Then, Katherine came out of the house, saw what her mother was doing, and started punching her in the face,
Nice.
knocking her to the ground. Here we have a screaming mother-in-law,
Right.
a choking father, another mom kicked out in the dirt on the road, and Katherine standing there with bloody knuckles. This is the epitome of dysfunctional.
And Jerry Springer's like, you know what? I got an idea for a show. This is the catharsis of the Jerry Springer show.
So a few weeks later, Katherine and David relocated to Woodbridge in Queensland to make a fresh start.
We could work it out.
David got a job as a truck driver, and Katherine began work as an abattoir near Brisbane. In October 1976, David organized a surprise 21st birthday party for his wife.
It's hard to shop for a psycho.
Now, she was thrilled because she felt like a princess. Everyone was there for her. All eyes were on her.
Right.
For a night that night, she was extremely well behaved, and it was surprising to everyone involved. It was at this time in Queensland that Katherine's love of her work knives became obsessive. She started taking them everywhere she went. She even hung them above the bed while she slept.
Sleep tight, my love.
To quote Katherine, "They're there in case I need them."
Okay.
David's mother said those knives were her pride and joy, and I think she loved those knives as much as she loved David.
David's certainly not as sharp as those knives.
While living with them at Woodbridge, David's sister Sandy witnessed one vicious incident she said she would never forget. On one occasion, she heard one of the children screaming loudly in the bathroom.
Ah, fuck.
Sandy went to see what the hell was going on in the bathroom, and Katherine had the hot water full blast and was holding her daughter under it.
Holy.
Furious, she told David that Katherine was abusing the kids, and David pleaded with Sandy to not tell anyone.
What?
He made her promise not to say anything because he feared that she would kill Sandy in her sleep, and she would most likely kill him and the kids as well.
Wow.
He was so afraid.
Tough to blame him.
By 1979, the couple's marriage was in real trouble. You think?
Yeah.
You think?
It was in real trouble when
Right.
the mom was like, hey, she's probably going to try and kill you.
Right.
You're really dumb.
David
That
found...
was years ago, right? At this point?
Yeah. David found Katherine in bed with another man.
Good keeper.
She begged him for one more chance. They moved to Landsborough, and Katherine convinced her husband to have another baby.
He should have been like,
Right.
have her.
Right.
Here's the keys to the thing. I'm out.
Yeah.
What the hell?
It was at this point that Katherine's moods became even more unpredictable, and she was becoming increasingly violent.
Open that booty.
By then, David was quite scared of being married to her.
He doesn't sound like he's much of a treat either.
Well, he had every reason to be scared.
Right, but he doesn't sound like a treat either.
No. But he never knew what was going to set Katherine off and just how brutal she was going to get.
Right.
The next attack would come when he was least expecting it and would almost kill him. In 1979, Katherine was pregnant with her second child.
I have an idea. Let's breed with the psycho. Come get
Her
some.
6-year marriage to David was not going well. He spent every day in fear for his life, scared of Katherine, and never knowing when she would attack him. One night, he was late coming home.
Like living with the bear.
I know. One night, he was late coming home from the bar because he'd made the finals of a dart competition. Katherine hated men being late.
And she really hated darts.
I hate that.
But David pushed his fear to the back of his mind as he needed a break from his wife. And it's not known whether he lost or won, but he needed some downtime from her. I'm not...
The space away from her was the victory.
Yeah.
But I still wish we knew the score.
It isn't known whether he actually won the competition, but he certainly lost when he got home.
Uh-oh.
He walked through the door, and she caved in the back of his skull with a skillet.
Whoa.
She split his head and fractured his skull.
Fuck me,
He
Ren.
managed to stagger to a neighbor's place before collapsing on their porch.
Yeah.
David spent the next week in the hospital. Once healed enough to be released, he went back home and discovered what Katherine had been doing when he'd been playing darts that night.
Totally sane things.
She had grabbed all of his stuff, put it all in the bathtub,
Right.
and burned everything he owned.
Totally sane.
His shoes, belts, socks, everything. He only had the clothes he was wearing.
She's thorough.
The police wanted to press very serious charges against her, but she once again turned on the charm. She was back to her sweet self, pleading with him not to do it for the sake of the kids.
Fuck them chitrons.
And he didn't press charges despite the fact that she had nearly killed him.
She caved his head in.
Yep.
It's not like, oh, strike one. What's next for strike two?
In March of 1980, 24-year-old Katherine Knight gave birth to Natasha Collette.
Poor thing.
Around this time, David was driving furniture trucks, which involved being away from home a lot. This led to even more anxiety and more madness. One night, he woke up with her threatening to stab him. She said, I know you truck drivers have women in every town. You've got one, haven't you? You got one. Well, of course he denied it. I mean, with a psychotic wife like this, he probably did, but he denied it.
Right.
This eventually put so much strain on the relationship that one day he came home and she had just packed up and left. He came home to a completely empty house. And
He's like, thank God. Fuck
she had gone first to her parents' house in Aberdeen, then to a rented house nearby Muswellbrook. I'm not sure how to pronounce that
It's
word.
pronounced crocky.
But although she returned to work at the abattoir, she eventually injured her back the following year and went on a disability pension. And since she no longer needed to rent accommodations close to her work, the government gave her a housing commission residence in Aberdeen. So she's back in Aberdeen.
Glad to have her.
Hello.
They're all glad to have her.
It might look like Katherine had a terrible fear of abandonment, that she lashes out when she's scared that David will leave her. However,
She's actually just a psycho.
Katherine's anger is actually triggered when someone doesn't do exactly what she wants. She's not hopelessly in love with David and unable to live without him.
I feel like everybody listening to this is like, I know a person exactly like that.
She's already cheated on him once, and when it suited her, she left him. So this isn't an abandonment thing. This is a control thing.
Gross.
When Katherine got back to Aberdeen with the two kids, she wasn't alone very long.
Uh-oh.
Katherine Knight, a lone psycho who cracked a guy's head open with a frying pan.
She hooked up with a local man named Dave Saunders, and he fit the mold of the kind of man that Katherine liked.
A man with terrible luck.
He was hardworking, hard drinking, hard talking sort of man.
All right.
Saunders was a former race car driver who was working in the coal mines.
So a pansy ass.
A few months later, he and his dingo puppy moved in with her and her daughters, although he kept his old apartment in Scone.
A dingo is my puppy.
Saunders stated that the honeymoon period only lasted a couple months.
'Cause psycho gonna psycho.
Knight soon became jealous regarding what he did when he was not around and would often throw him out. He would move back to his apartment where she would inevitably follow and beg him to return.
Yikes.
One night, he came home from work and opened the door to the house to be met by Katherine, who was in the middle of ironing.
And this next part is gonna be totally reasonable, I'm sure.
She didn't put the iron down to meet him with a hug and a kiss. Oh no.
Oh, fuck.
She swung that bitch and mashed him in the face with the hot iron. Apparently, you could see the steam hole marks on the side of his face weeks later. But she wasn't finished.
Psycho.
She had him by the arm, swinging him around the front room of the house, attempting to beat him in the head with the iron, and then stabbing him in the abdomen with a pair of scissors.
Jesus, fuck.
The only reason she was doing this was because he was arriving a little late home.
Okay, well, that makes sense then.
Try to be on time next time.
Sorry. Wow.
Yeah. So why did Dave Saunders stay with Katherine Knight?
Dumb.
Why did Dave Kellett stay with Katherine Knight?
Dumb.
These questions were asked, and they both answered the same. Apparently,
They're dumb.
the sex was good.
What?
Yeah.
Our dicks, guys. Come
What
on.
the fuck?
Our dicks.
Things-
Not our allies, friends.
Things had gotten worse with Saunders. One particularly ugly fight in May of 1987 when he tried to leave her. The fight ended when Katherine ran outside. Saunders followed and saw that she looked as if she was nursing his dingo puppy.
Oh, I don't like where this is going.
But then he realized she was holding a knife and had slit his dog's throat for no more reason than as an example of what would happen if he ever had an affair.
A psycho Sheila bitch killed my baby dingo.
Before going to knock him unconscious with a frying pan.
Fuck.
Yeah.
Lovely woman.
She was that angry at him for attempting to leave her that she had killed his dog and beat him in the head with the pan.
It's the second time she's panned a guy.
After killing the puppy, she turned up at her sister Joy's place with a shotgun, saying she killed Dave Sanders.
I would have preferred that over the puppy. I'm just saying.
Katherine has 2 reasons for telling her sister Joy that she killed Dave. Okay, these are...
1, she's psycho.
Psychologically speaking.
2, she's psycho.
The first is for the shock and distress this will create. She finds it entertaining.
Psycho.
The second reason is because she's actually planning his death.
Psycho.
She's rehearsing the method of murder in her mind, and she's experiencing people's reactions to the news without having to go through it. After she killed the dog, Saunders tries to leave Katherine a few more times.
Dumb.
He hasn't left yet.
Dumb.
Yikes.
He moves in with some friends, but she would never let him go. She was very persistent.
Society does prefer a lazy psycho.
In June of 1988, Katherine and Saunders had a baby girl.
What the fuck, bro?
Right? Saunders bought a small house when their baby was 6 months old, and they moved in together. Knight decorated the house throughout with animal skins, skulls, horns, rusty animal traps, leather jackets, old boots, machetes, rakes, pitchforks. No space, including the ceilings, was left uncovered.
All
I
baby
saw
proof.
a picture of this shit.
Family living.
I swear, it looked like a
Happy place?
It looked like a used farm equipment store.
Oh, wow.
It was insane.
Baby was super safe in there.
But things hadn't improved, and Saunders kept trying to escape.
I bet. Shit.
He took a leave of absence from the mine and told them that he was going to go visit a friend in another town.
Bye.
But he wasn't going to another town.
Bye.
And he wasn't coming back either. Bye. As far as he was concerned, he had disappeared. He actually moved to Newcastle, and he hid there.
Good for him.
He got another job and started a new life in hiding.
Godspeed, Kat.
Catherine was furious that Saunders had managed to get away. So she told their 2-year-old daughter that her father was dead.
Wow.
All the while searching for Saunders.
Yikes. Poor kid.
Although she tried to find him, no one admitted to knowing his whereabouts.
You gotta hide, cunt, hide.
Several months later, Saunders returned to see his daughter and found out that Knight had gone to the police and lied and unjustly told them that she was afraid of him. They issued her what they call in Australia an apprehended violence order, an AVO, which is like our restraining orders. That would just piss me off.
That's just extra salt in the wound.
It was during her search that she stumbled upon her next prey.
Katherine Knight, a lone psycho. She's cracked 2 guys' heads open with a frying pan and slit a dog's throat.
All right, sorry. So there's a new guy.
43-year-old former abattoir co-worker John Chillingsworth.
Chillingsworth. I like that.
Well, did you have a good time at the beach?
Well, I definitely got my Chillingsworth.
This relationship followed her usual pattern. She would lure him in with sex and false sense of security.
I.e. not going crazy for a bit.
Not long after they got together, she was pregnant and gave birth the following year in March of 1991 to a boy named Eric.
Sorry, kid.
Pretty soon after that, the relationship turned violent. Big surprise. At one point, she hit him in the face and broke his glasses.
Take that, glasses.
There are a lot of allegations that he hit her as well. Just 3 years after they met, their relationship came to a violent end.
There seems to be a pattern forming.
She left him with the kids, and he felt the abandonment this time.
But you have the kids.
He tried to follow her around and bring her back.
No, dummy.
But she'd already found a new victim.
Yeah.
And that man's name was John Price.
Katherine Knight, a lone psycho who hates children, puppies, and men, is jealous and has a very bad temper, but she will fuck your brains out.
Unfortunately for John Price, no one could have foreseen the acts of untold horror that were awaiting him.
So really, Chillingworth kind of got away without having... Because the other 2 guys got panned.
Yeah, well...
And a dog killed.
Right.
And smashed with an iron.
Yeah, but he wasn't with her for very long.
Not long enough to get panned like the others.
Right, just to have his glasses broken into his eyeballs.
Right.
Katherine now had 4 children with 3 former partners.
Rad.
All of her exes claimed she used to beat the crap out of him.
Not surprised.
In October of 1993, she met John Price.
Poor guy.
Both were 38 years old. Price had an ex-wife and 3 kids that he absolutely adored. John Charles Thomas Price, born April 4th, 1955, was reportedly a, quote, terrific bloke.
As far as blokes go, this guy was fucking terrific.
Liked by everyone who knew him. His own marriage had ended in 1988. While his 2-year-old daughter had remained with his former wife, the 2 older children lived with him. He was the one for Katherine, and she had no intention of letting him get away. Price was another man who had left school early, loved to drink, drove big trucks, and worked at the mine. He was just your typical rough-around-the-edges kind of man.
Part of the backbone of this economy.
He was kind and old-fashioned when it came to social situations. He would shake your hand, he'd help his neighbors. All 4 of her partners were very similar types of people, and there was rarely a night in their lives that they were sober, at least when they were with Katherine. And that's not surprising at all.
Yeah, booze makes the potential stabbings easier to tolerate.
Price was well aware of Knight's violent reputation when she moved into his house in 1995. His children liked her, though, and he was making a lot of money at the local mines, and apart from violent arguments, at first, life was a bunch of roses, he said.
I doubt that. Ooh.
They got along quite well, and they could sit down and have conversations and have meals, and there was never much arguing.
Just wait.
Price's daughters actually liked Katherine in the beginning, even though they knew she had some negative traits. Oh, if they only knew how bad she actually was.
Fuck.
They stated their father had some less than appealing habits. He sometimes drank too much and he smoked, but Katherine's bad points were just downright strange.
Psycho.
One daughter recalled riding with Katherine in her car when she swerved to hit a dog as he ran across the road.
Dick move, bro.
When the daughter asked why she did that, Katherine says, "I don't like dogs."
Oh, I hope this lady gets her face ripped off by a Wolverine.
The relationship followed the usual pattern, though. This time, however, she didn't get pregnant. She was a bit older.
That's a positive.
But there was violence. She beat him. Perhaps he beat her. It's unclear. She says that he did, though. His children say that there were scars all over his body from where she'd stabbed him and hit him. Price's nickname for Katherine was the Speckled Hen because of her vicious nature.
Katherine Knight, a lone speckled hen.
After about 18 months, the Speckled Hen was pushing for a lifelong commitment, though, and Price told her that he was only in it for the sex, and she ought to get used to that.
That should go over good.
She wanted him to marry her, and he absolutely refused.
Uh-oh.
Yep. When Price wouldn't do what she wanted him to do, she tried to hurt his children. When Price's daughter Rebecca was 13, she had just got home from school, and Katherine set her down for a serious conversation.
Oh, fuck.
She wanted to tell her that Price wasn't her real father,
How cruel.
that her mother had slept with some guy, and Price wasn't her father. Although they weren't officially living together, Katherine treated Price's place like it was her own. Price told friends he wanted her out of his house, but in Katherine's mind, the house was rightly hers.
Oh, of course it is.
When she found John Price's will and discovered that he'd left everything to his ex-wife and his kids in case of death,
And she remained very calm about
she
it.
demanded that he pay her $10,000
Oh.
for her to leave.
That's not very calm.
Yeah. When Price refused to give her anything, she then turned around with a video camera and videotaped items that he had allegedly stolen from work
Oh, shit.
and sent the tape to his boss. Although the items were expired medical kits that he had actually scavenged from the company's like trash dump, Price was still fired from the job
Right.
that he had held for 17 years. That same day, he kicked her out, and she returned to her own home while news of what she had done spread throughout town. Price was now 43 and unemployed.
Fucking Katherine.
Katherine told her daughter Natasha that if Price took her back, this time it would be until the death.
To the pain.
However, little did Price know the death would come sooner rather than later.
Fuck.
Katherine Knight was furious when she videoed the first aid kits her partner had stolen from work. No one could believe Price would take Katherine back after a stunt like that, but he did, although he now refused to allow her to move in with him.
Still dumb.
The fighting became even more frequent, and most of his friends would no longer have anything to do with him while he remained with her. With two younger children now at school, Katherine was spending more time alone at home, watching disturbing horror movies and enjoying the death
Yikes.
that surrounded her.
Okay.
One of her favorite places was a lounge room in her home. It was full of skulls and skins and horns,
Right.
and she had machetes from
Creepy shit.
an old farm equipment hanging from the ceiling.
Some people collect stamps and trains. Other people collect rusty murder implements.
There were animal heads and knives on the walls.
Cozy. I want to say warm.
It sounds pretty crazy.
It does seem a little bit odd.
Yeah. Catherine's been obsessed with death since she was young as the age of 4 or 5.
That didn't help this shit.
She keeps the trophies of dead animals around her partly because she finds death attractive, the way some of us would view art, but she also loves the ways that these corpses creep others out. So
Right.
it's like a control thing.
Mm-hmm.
She likes the shock value of it.
A lot of us are that way.
They make people more scared of her.
The knives help.
Catherine also watches sadistic movies as they enrich her violent fantasy life. So she watched crazy, like the gorier the better.
She's looking for ideas.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it was late 1999, and 44-year-old Catherine was desperately trying to hold on to her man, and he was desperately trying to get the fuck away from her.
Poor bastard.
It was at this time that it seemed like he knew something bad was going to happen.
And he was right.
The last few days of Price's life were building to an ugly climax. On the Sunday before he died, the couple had a massive fight, which resulted in a visit from the police.
But all they did was shoot the dog. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
On Monday, Price went to work, and for the first time, he showed 2 colleagues where Catherine had previously stabbed him.
Goddamn.
He went back to work on Tuesday and told his boss that he was going to go to the courthouse and the police station to see what they could do to keep this, quote, crazy bitch away from him.
She gave me body a stabby.
But the news wasn't good.
Imagine being the friend at the office or whatever, and you know that they're not getting along good. They're talking. Your friend is talking to you about divorce and stuff, and then all of a sudden they pull out, oh, she stabbed me here,
Right.
and then also here.
Yep.
What would you do in that situation if you're that friend?
Good God,
You're
I
like,
don't know.
Dude, I think it's
Get
already
the
too
fuck
far.
away. Yeah,
like I have a couch, but I wouldn't want anything to do with that person.
Right.
But I have no idea what the advice would be to give to a friend other than, what the fuck, dude? It's
Right.
way past time to leave.
You've allowed this to
These
go
are
on too long.
felonies. This person hates you. They're not your friend. And
Right.
the sex isn't that good in any situation on the earth to risk your life
somewhere
for.
else.
Get fucked.
Go. All
Right.
females have the parts required. There's a lot of them.
Goddamn.
I gotta listen here a minute, Mrs. Script Keeper. A person's freakiness is ratioed to their craziness. It's all part of the Fibonacci sequence.
Price was told he'd have to wait 3 weeks to go to court. He said that he thought he'd probably be dead by then, but had no idea that he was already halfway through the last day of his life. His co-workers pleaded with him not to stay at the house that night.
Oh, man.
He stated that he was afraid Knight would kill his children if he did not.
Oh, man.
Price arrived home to find that Knight, although not there herself, had sent the children away for a sleepover at a friend's house.
Well, that's better than it could have been.
He then spent the evening with his neighbors before returning home and going to bed around 11 p.m. Earlier that day, Knight had bought a new black lingerie and had videotaped all of her children while making comments which have since been interpreted as a crude will of sorts.
Oh, I'm sure that was totally sane.
She later arrived at Price's house while he was sleeping and sat watching television for a few minutes before having a shower.
If I was that dude, I'd be wearing chainmail from head to toe.
She then woke Price up. They had sex, after which he fell back to sleep.
I would have worn the chainmail during the sex.
Price's coworkers were immediately worried when he didn't show up to work the next day. John Price was the kind of person who was always the first to arrive at work. Concerns were raised very early by his coworkers when they tried to call him at home, but the phone just kept ringing and ringing.
Well, they knew the night before. They're
Right.
like, don't go home.
Yep.
And this is why.
Even though Price tried for days to gain assistance from the authorities, nobody took him seriously, and they should have.
Well, certainly.
At 6 a.m. the next day, the neighbor became worried that Price's car was still in the driveway, and when he did not arrive at work, his employer sent a worker to see what was wrong. Both the neighbor and the worker tried knocking on Price's bedroom window to wake him, but they alerted the police after noticing blood on the front door. Police arrived at 8 a.m. A crowd of concerned locals gathered outside of 84th and Andrews Street, and when the police forced their way into the house, they found Katherine Knight half asleep on the bed. She had swallowed a number of pills and was out of it.
Well, die, bitch, die.
The police roused her enough to detain her, and it was stated that when Katherine walked out of the house with the police, she was smiling. When Detective Sergeant Bob Wells arrived at the scene, Katherine Knight was being taken away in an ambulance. He had initially spoke with the officer on duty at the time and was briefed on what was witnessed inside the premises. Once he had entered the home, he stated what he saw was truly the most horrific scene he had ever witnessed. Now, this is a seasoned detective. His quote, "It was a shock to everybody that had anything to do with that particular crime scene. I just couldn't believe that one human being, either male or female, of our species could carry out such a calculated offense." End quote.
Well, fuck.
She had stabbed Price with a butcher's knife while he was sleeping.
Coward.
According to the blood evidence, he awoke and tried to turn on the light before attempting to escape while Knight chased him through the house. He managed to open the front door and get outside, but he either stumbled back inside or was dragged back into the hallway, where he finally died after bleeding out.
Terrible way to die.
Price's autopsy revealed that he had been stabbed at least 37 times in both the front and back of his body, with many of the wounds extending into his vital organs. Several hours after Price had died, Knight skinned him and hung the skin from a meat hook on a door jamb to the lounge room. She then decapitated Price and cooked parts of his body, serving up the meat with baked potato, pumpkin, beetroot, zucchini, cabbage, yellow squash, and gravy in 2 settings at the dinner table, along with notes beside each plate, each having the name of one of Price's children on it.
She was going to feed their father to them.
She was preparing to serve his body parts to his children.
Fuck.
A plate of Price and veggies was also found out back, scattered across the lawn, and it was assumed that this plate was intended for the other daughter, but Knight had decided against it for some unknown reason. Price's head was found in a pot with vegetables. The pot was still warm, indicating that the cooking had happened sometime earlier in the morning. Sometime later, Knight had arranged the skinless body with the left arm draped over an empty 2.5-liter soft drink bottle with the legs crossed.
What?
Yep. She posed the body.
Fuck.
It was claimed in court to be an act of defilement demonstrating Knight's contempt for Price.
Yeah, big time.
Knight had left a handwritten note on top of a photograph of Price, blood-stained and covered with small pieces of his flesh. It read, now this is a quote.
I'm a normal, totally fine person.
"Time got you back, Jonathan, for raping my daughter. You too, Beck, for Ross, for Little John," which is his son. "Now play with Little John's dick, John Price." End quote, right? However, the accusations in the note were later found to be completely groundless.
Okay.
He was not a child molester. He didn't rape her daughter.
Okay, good.
There were other notes found in the house written to the children, basically stating, "If I can't have your father, nobody else will."
Wow.
At autopsy, nearly all of Price's body was accounted for.
Not all.
Almost.
Except for...
Nearly all. It was at this time that the coroner and police assumed that Knight had consumed the missing parts, although she never actually admitted to it. But those parts were gone. And, they were delicate parts,
They didn't
evidently.
go through her poop.
No.
She ate his dick?
They didn't say what parts they were. She must have.
Yeah.
But they said they were delicate parts. But I couldn't find out what parts were gone.
Well, that's delicate part number 1.
Well, she did mention the dick.
She totally ate his dick.
In the letter.
She ate the dick.
Now play with John's dick, John Price. That sort of thing. I don't know.
I don't know either, but I'm certain she ate the dick.
It didn't take long for the unfathomable news to spread. As the news story came across the television, Catherine's former sister-in-law, Sandy,
There's Kathy.
saw that an Aberdeen woman had murdered her husband. Sandy told her husband that her sister-in-law was the one who did it.
She was right.
Sandy's husband was skeptical, saying even though Sandy had shared so many stories over the years, he didn't think she was that crazy.
He was wrong.
Hours later, the news released the name of the woman, Katherine Knight, and none of the family was surprised. The police had the terrible task of informing John Price's family. They spoke to his son, Jonathan, but no one knew how to tell 14-year-old Rebecca. She actually read the horrendous details in the fucking newspaper.
No.
Yeah.
Somebody had to step up and tell him.
Right. She read about it in the paper. For the next 6 days, Katherine was at Musselbrook and Maitland's hospitals. She claimed to have no knowledge of the monstrous crime she had committed, but 2 things would lead to her undoing: greed and the testimony from one that was closest to her. Detective Sergeant Bob Wells first interviewed Katherine at Maitland Hospital just a few days after the murder. Although she claimed to have no memory of the night of Price's death, she did remember stabbing him 6 months earlier.
Pissed me off.
Her story about that night was that he had been beating her and she grabbed the closest thing to her to defend herself, and it happened to be a kitchen knife.
Her favorite kitchen knife.
She turned to point the knife at him, and he was just standing too close.
Whoopsie.
And she stabbed him because she had gotten new glasses and didn't see very well. Right?
Wow.
Yeah, so hearing about Katherine Knight can lead anyone to believe that she was the most evil woman in the world. However, when you see her, she's really very ordinary looking. She kind of looks like a librarian. She's got the glasses, and she just... Nothing special about her. She's kind of plain.
She does seem kind of stupid, though, too.
Yeah, well, you know.
Just throwing that in the pie.
When they showed the video of the crime scene to the court, it was said to be the most horrific video you would ever wish to see.
I don't want it.
It's just unimaginable what police saw that day. The skin looked like a wetsuit. It took a minute to process what it was.
I bet.
It was hanging on a butcher's hook in the doorway, and it had all come off in one piece.
Fucking...
Hands, feet,
What?
all of it. The only thing that was missing was from the neck up because it was still attached to the skull.
God damn.
Perhaps the worst part of the video was when they went to the stove in the kitchen and you see the gloved hand of a forensic policeman take the lid off the pot on top of the stove, and inside it was John Price's head staring back at the camera amidst potatoes and carrots.
Just looking at
Just, ugh.
Jeez.
This display was Katherine showing her ultimate power. The lead detective, Bob Wells, suffered a nervous breakdown in relation to his involvement in this case. It was shown later that it had actually had a huge impact on the officers present that day.
How could it not?
Although Katherine had displayed this bizarre behavior and committed this absolutely shocking and horrific crime, the psychological testing would show later that she did not suffer from any kind of mental illness.
What?
There was nothing wrong with this woman.
Okay.
Further evidence to support she was of sound mind was discovered by John Price's attorney, who noticed money had been withdrawn from Price's account the night he was killed.
That doesn't make her sane.
After Katherine skinned his body, she had driven a substantial distance to a bank where she withdrew $1,000 from John Price's bank account by using his debit card, and then after that, she returned to the crime scene. Katherine told her brother 3 weeks earlier that she was going to kill Price, but she was going to do it in a way that made everyone think she was crazy. Her brother actually made a statement against her and told the police what she had told him and when. Katherine had stated they would never convict her.
Run. Sheesh.
Right.
Okay, so she's not that stupid.
Knight's initial
But-
offer...
Fucking out of her mind.
Right, well,
The fact that they didn't think that she's out of her mind, it's like, well, people don't do that. That are
yeah,
within
well,
their mind.
you would think not.
I doesn't think not.
Katherine's initial offer to plead guilty to manslaughter was rejected, and she was arraigned on March 2nd, 2001 on the charge of murdering Price, to which she entered a plea of not guilty. Her trial was initially scheduled for the 23rd of July in 2001, but was adjourned due to her counsel's illness and was rescheduled for October 15th of 2001. So they pushed it out a bit. When the trial commenced, Justice Barry O'Keefe offered the 60 jury members the option of being excused due to the nature of the photographic evidence, which 5 had accepted. When the witness list was read out to the prospects, several more also dropped off, after which the jury was impaneled or enrolled, what they call enrolled. Knight's attorneys then spoke to the judge, who adjourned to the following day. The next morning, on October 18th, Knight changed her plea to guilty, and the jury was dismissed. It was then made public that Justice O'Keefe had been advised of the plea change the day before. He had adjourned the trial and then ordered a psychiatric assessment overnight to determine if Knight understood the consequences of a guilty plea and was fit to make such a plea. Looking at this, you would think she's kind of not sane.
I for sure think she's not sane.
Knight's legal team had planned to defend Knight by claiming amnesia and dissociation, a claim supported by most psychiatrists, although they did consider her sane.
Come on.
2 psychiatrists concluded that Knight suffered from borderline personality disorder.
I'm sure lots of people have that don't murder folk.
No reason has ever been given for the guilty plea, and despite giving it, Knight still refused to accept responsibility for her actions. At the sentencing hearing, Knight's lawyers requested that she be excused to avoid hearing some of the facts, but the application was refused. They made her sit there, and listen to it.
Good.
When Timothy Lyons took the stand and described the skinning and decapitation, evidently Knight became hysterical and had to be sedated,
Whoa.
even though she did it, right? On the 8th of November, Justice O'Keefe pointed out that the nature of the crime and Knight's lack of remorse required a severe penalty. He sentenced her to life imprisonment, refused to parole, and ordered that her documents be marked never to be released.
Nice.
The first time this had been imposed on a woman in Australian history. In June 2006, Knight appealed the life sentence, claiming that a penalty of life in prison without possibility of parole was too severe for the killing. Justices Peter McClellan, Michael Adams, and Megan Latham dismissed the appeal in the New South Wales Court of Criminal Appeals in September, with Justice McClellan writing in his judgment, quote, "This was an appalling crime, almost beyond contemplation in a civilized society," end quote.
Agreed.
Basically, all of Katherine's partners that survived,
The victims of the pannings.
they testified about her abuse.
Sorry.
These big, calloused, hardworking men broke down in tears on the stand when they spoke about her abuse. They were legitimate victims of domestic violence.
Right.
They were scarred physically. No matter how hard their outer shell, they were rattled by what Katherine had done to them, and they remained rattled 4 decades later. So could it be possible that Katherine Knight was sane when she committed this murder?
I don't think she was sane any time in her life.
Well,
I think
how?
it was just unfortunate roll of the genetic dice.
So-
And that terrible Dipshit.
Shit, parents.
Well, how could somebody in their right mind do something so deranged?
Right.
You know what I mean?
That's just not part of that's not what a right mind does.
Ugh.
So, I mean, the skinning, that's, you're not even close
Oh,
to
my
a sane
God.
person if you're skinning a human being.
Well, the fact is that Katherine was not insane when she butchered John Price.
I disagree.
She planned what she was doing.
Insane psychos can make plans.
She knew right from wrong.
Psychos suckle the teat of wrong.
And there were no voices telling her to kill him.
Except for her own.
She stole money.
Insane psychos still need money, mainly for bulk mayonnaise and outfits for their dogs, but still.
It was all about control for her. And if you look at her history, it built up to that.
Right.
I mean, she was, a psycho.
Right. Never once sane. Yeah.
But
So.
she doesn't have, to this day, she doesn't have a legitimate mental health diagnosis.
Sure. Okay.
She
Well,
does not.
I disagree.
She has what they
But
call
they know more than I do, I'm sure.
a personality disorder.
Right.
Not a mental disorder.
Okay.
Remember we had discussed that a couple episodes back?
Well, my ignorance, I'm sure, makes me sound just like a fool in this.
Well,
but
no,
I
I
would say that-
understand what you're saying. Anybody who skins another human
Yep.
can't be sane.
nope.
But technically,
Schmechnically.
a mental disorder and a personality disorder are two different things.
Oh, that's for sure. And I am a moron. And most people that fall in the mental health world are the nicest people and have, most sociopaths don't commit crimes. Most sociopaths don't hurt people. They might be dicks. But psychopaths are the ones that are worrisome. And they're insane just by the wiring, in my mind.
Well, okay,
This
so
person's been insane since day one.
she was coldly lucid throughout the whole murder.
Insane her whole life.
I mean, she really was throughout the whole process. The dismemberment. And not only was she not in her right mind, she was having the best time of her life.
That's insane.
She walked out of that house with a big-ass grin on her face.
Right.
She thought what she did was cool.
Most unheinous, bro.
So if she's not insane,
It's not cool to
Is she-
kill and eat people.
no. Is she just bad?
Oh, psychotic.
She's some kind of evil monster completely alien to the rest of us? You know what I
think
mean?
what I'm saying is that she's filtering reality through her own belief system, like we all do, and that belief system is completely skewed from reality.
Well, Katherine Knight's personality is best summed up with one word, and that is psychopath.
Yeah.
She's ruthless, self-serving,
Doesn't like dogs,
incapable of feeling guilt, and dangerous until the day she dies.
which we all hope is soon.
Pretty much.
Yep.
So this story actually left me wondering about female psychopaths, and I did a bit of digging. Now, I found a bunch of shit that I found fascinating, but if I would have included in here, this would have been a 2-hour episode. So basically, here's the nuts and bolts of it. Psychopaths exist across cultures and ethnic groups, and at an estimated frequency of about 1% of the population for males, and 0.3 to 0.7 of the population for females.
Okay.
Now, there's a lot of information out there and traits and that sort of thing, but I decided not to include it for brevity even though this is already a long story. But I thought that interesting. 0.3% of the population to 0.7% of the population for females can be considered psychopaths.
Right.
It's insane.
Well, think about just the United States. So just take it 1% all across the board. So we're looking at, there's 330 million people here. So we're looking at millions of psychopaths running around.
Doing psycho shit.
That's just how it goes.
And that's the end of my story.
Sounds good. Well, let's check out the dipshit meter.
Okay.
So how dangerous is this dipshit?
All right. So here we are looking at an absolutely terrible human being. And when we did the grading for this, 0 to 5, 5 being, in brutality, the most brutal possible thing, etc. It was incredible.
Well, Zach didn't know this story.
I had never heard it.
Nope.
And when I was skeptical, it's like one murder. That's
he was like, "How is that possible?"
Yeah,
I'm like, just wait.
When we did Time Suck, it was like one murder. That's really not. Can that even be an interesting 2.5 hour suck? Sometimes it can, and Dan can make anything interesting. But this one was a fucking brutal.
Yeah.
I mean, there was several people that could have been killed by her.
Oh yeah.
For one. But
they got away in time, kind of, in a weird way.
Yeah, they really did.
They tried to escape for a long time. All of them did.
Yeah. Well, that one guy, I mean, going back after getting brained by a fucking pan, having your skull crushed and being like, yeah, strike 2.
Well, evidently the sex was good.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And I mean, sex is fun and stuff, but come on.
Yeah.
Beyond a certain level, your life is worth more than the sex.
Yeah.
But maybe not. That's from me. That's from my brain. Other people's brains, maybe not.
Yeah.
Maybe these guys, this was the only...
I don't get it. I didn't understand that whole aspect. I'm like, dude, what the fuck? It doesn't matter how good the sex is if you die.
Right. Well, I will, coming from an owner of a penis.
Yeah.
And really, I'm just a passenger to the penis. That's basically your life. So I'm your passenger.
Yeah, but there's a lot out there. You don't have to settle for this one.
Maybe Aberdeen just didn't have that kind of, maybe she was the...
Take a bus if you can't drive.
Fair.
Leave town for just a day.
All right, so now let's do our meter. We've got brutality, cruelty, criminal mind, depravity, and basically the body count is what we've added lately. Well, let's start with brutality.
Boy, I don't know how to get along with people well, do I?
Very, very fucking brutal.
This woman was fucking brutal. Before she even started in on people.
Yeah.
She was
brutal to animals.
Brutal.
Having fun at a job that shouldn't be fun.
No.
You shouldn't enjoy that.
No, and for these other...
Take pride in your work, but you shouldn't enjoy it.
Well, these other abattoir workers, they're all in the business of killing and slaughtering.
They know it's
That's
a tough
what
job,
they do.
but it has to be done for people to eat meat. Yes.
And all of these people were afraid of her.
Right.
Because of the way she was reacting to it. She was going in and killing, not even killing. She was slaughtering animals before they were dead.
Right.
Cutting their throats, just
maiming.
enjoying their screams, taking body parts home.
Yeah.
What?
Right.
Ugh.
We gave her a 4.75.
Yeah.
Higher than almost any of the other people we've covered for brutality. Because time after time after time, she was very brutal.
Yeah. Well, she killed thousands and thousands of animals.
Before she got to her first...
Before she got to her people. She put her baby on fucking... She put
the train tracks. Yeah. And this is a person you would consider an expert with a knife. So when she's stabbing somebody, she's like, I'm going for the kidney now. Now I'm going for the lungs or whatever. I mean, there's potential for that. Now let's talk about cruelty.
Did the dipshit enjoy the hurting?
Also fucking high. Not as high as brutality, but she was a very cruel person.
Yeah.
4.5. That's about as high as it can get.
Well, everything she did was for the thrill of it. That's why I gave her such a high score.
Oh, and wanted to feed the children the parent, their father. That I don't even know why we didn't give her a 5. Because it's so high.
She held her baby under scalding hot water.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, cruelty through the roof. That's why this person is so high. Criminal mind.
Did this dipshit have any brains in its head?
Now, she wasn't a genius.
No.
But she was thinking about all of these crimes way before.
Oh, yeah.
Warning people, testing it out, seeing, doing a trial run. I killed him.
Yep.
Not killing him.
Just seeing how things were going to go. She tried to set herself up for an insanity plea her downfall was the money that she took out before or after she parted out her husband, boyfriend,
somewhere in that moment.
And then telling her brother that she was going to do it, and then she was going to make it look like she was crazy, and she wouldn't be convicted. That's where her downfall was, her ego and her greed.
But we didn't give her a super high one because she wasn't somewhere up there with Joseph Fritzl investing years into creating an underground layer or whatever.
But if this whole thing was an elaborate ruse to try and make her seem crazy, and she did it on purpose, she's like, I know what I'll do. I know what I'm gonna pretend to feed. But she ate. The thing is, she ate part of him.
Right.
So
probably his dick.
Yeah, but probably.
Sounds like his dick.
The delicate parts.
We gave her a 3.0, a 3.0 in the criminal mind. So she's really kind of middle of the road there. Mm-hmm. But she did do some thinking about it.
Oh, yeah.
But she was just a piece of shit. It was. These were reactions, it seems. And then she just kind of justified her actions.
Yeah. It was. She had massive control issues.
Yeah.
She really did.
Yep.
You do what I say. You do what I want.
She was a volatile, she was a slave to her mind, unfortunately. And I think that is almost all nature. She was born that way, and that was unfortunate for her and everyone that knew her.
That's why she was so happy on her 21st birthday, because everyone did what she wanted. Right. Everyone followed her around.
So that's
she
how you
was
deal
a
with
princess that day.
And people that have raised psychopaths or that just have that's a hardcore person, they probably know that. When you raise somebody, even a sociopath, when you raise them, it's always got to be their idea. You never disagree with them, or that's where the troubles happen.
That's terrible.
It's impossible to live your life that way.
You can't.
Right.
You have to get away from them, which goes against what they want.
Right.
And then you have to deal with the consequences. So
hard to deal with human beings. We are fucking dumb. We are. That's all right. But now let's talk depravity. Holy fuck.
How depraved was the dipshit?
Very fucking high.
Yep.
I mean, if you eat people, that's really what depravity is all about, besides coming on them. She didn't come on anyone, but she cut off a dick and ate it. Now, we didn't give her a 5.
No.
The reason why she doesn't get 5s across the board for these things is
because there's only one.
There's only one.
Yeah.
And there was attempts at a couple others. So we don't know, but we can only give one. And we kind of have to give a little bit for the thousands and thousands of animals.
Yeah.
We get that the meat industry must exist, and these people are doing things that I'm sure the turnover rate is very high.
What I found out was abattoirs...
But she went too far.
Well, abattoirs used to use the bolt method to...
I've seen...
Kill the cows and pigs and stuff. What they do now, I guess, I think it was 2002... At least in Australia, when it changed, it changed over to an electrocution thing. Yeesh. So it stops their heart as fast as possible.
Nice.
Because fear and terror in the animals ruins the taste of the meat. Okay. That's what the abattoir guy was saying.
Yikes.
In the articles that I was reading, that the more fear an animal experiences, the worse the meat tastes, because it's flooded with this chemical that...
God, we're fucking twisted creatures to our fellow earthlings. I know.
So what they want is good, sweet meat. So the faster you kill them, the less afraid they are. The happier they are when they die, the better they taste.
We are evil to our fellow earthlings. Think about it. All the creatures on Earth, earthlings.
Right.
We are kind of the dicks to all the earthlings.
Oh, absolutely.
Some of the animals are a menace. A mosquito, a lot of animals are not friends of those. But we are not friends to any of the other earthlings.
Now I think you probably understand why I said that this episode research almost turned me into a vegetarian.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm almost...
And she saved you guys from 90%. Like, there was a whole lot of stuff that was really... I'm glad I didn't hear all of it.
There's a movie out there, I can't remember the name of it, about processing of animals.
Right.
And it was really popular. See, what was it called? Earthling?
Maybe. I don't know.
Remember?
That's probably where I got that fucking line from. I don't know. So I'm sure it's from some silly thing.
I couldn't watch it because I can't. I mean, I can watch a movie, where the lead person gets killed. Like that never bothers me.
It's like, that's corn syrup.
It does. I don't even have to think about those things. It's just a given. I don't care. Show me a dog die in a movie.
I know.
I can't handle it.
Same.
Even though I know it didn't really happen, I can't. It makes me sick.
It ruins the movie. It's like, what a great movie, huh? It's like, yeah, but the dog dies. So guess who's never watching that movie again?
Right, exactly.
Even on movies that I'm like, that's part of a franchise that I like. I'm going to say Riddick. I like Riddick a lot, even though people make fun of some of the Riddick. I like Riddick. I like the idea of Riddick. There's one of the shows, one of the goddamn dog, fuck you. Now I'll never watch it again. It's like, no, I had a bond with that animal, and you ripped it away from me. What are you trying to teach me a fucking lesson? Fuck you, Hollywood.
Right.
Fuck you, Vin Diesel. Fuck you, weird blue-eyed Riddick. Kind of went off there. But we're doing the dipshit meter, and we still haven't got to the number yet. It's 4.75.
Yeah.
It's not a 5 because, again, only one person. But you can't get more.
No,
depraved
she
than that.
skinned the dude in all in one piece, and then hung it in the doorway.
Right.
They thought it was a wetsuit.
That's insane. I wonder, the thing I keep thinking about is like, did she try it on?
Oh, God.
I mean, it would probably fit.
God.
Although, I don't know. She was really
She was
tall
a tall
girl.
woman.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly how tall she was, but I think she was 5'10".
But so she was, I mean, the point of that was to get to the meat? Is that... you could get to the meat without doing that.
I don't know. She wanted to pose his skinless body.
That is... And she did that all in like a night.
Yeah.
That was a quick... Like, she knew what she was doing, though.
She was, you know, she's bragging without actually using words. She wanted people to see how awesome she was.
Fuck. So...
Fucking twisted.
4.75 on depravity. Now we'll talk about what we're just going to call... We're going to just be honest with it. The body count.
This noise is fucking awful.
1.0 this time. And it should be a 0.05 or 0.5 because it was only one person, and that's our official scale. But for the thousands of animals that she tortured before she killed, we're going to give it the half a point, even though that's ridiculous. It should be, whatever. But it's meat. And we all eat meat.
But the thing is, this isn't a serial killer episode. So the body count doesn't really matter. This is just a dipshit files for a psychopath.
If she had killed a few other people, she would be... I mean, she'd be up there with Pedro Lopez. Like, here's the final score, you guys. 3.6 for this one. She killed one person. That's higher than Joseph Fritzl, who's a 2.85. We talked about Johnny Robinson recently, 3.3. She's higher than Ed fucking Kemper, who took heads off and fucked necks and shit. She's just that much more cruel, that much more brutal. She had a little bit more higher mind. She was higher than Jeffrey Dahmer, folks.
She had 40 years of consistent cruelty.
Yeah.
At least. I mean, essentially her cruelty started coming out at the age of 4.
Yeah.
Is when they really started noticing it. Nobody paid attention because they were all abattoir workers. So when she was abusing animals, they didn't, it's like, okay.
Right.
Nobody...
They were concerned about it, but it's, there's weird things to the job.
I don't think they were concerned.
Really? Okay. Her
brothers
parents
and
probably
sisters.
weren't. They probably showed her stuff.
Right.
They probably took their frustrations out.
Right, and she was being... I mean, father was raping her mother.
Right.
Every day, beating her, and brothers were raping their sisters. So, I mean, that's just the way life was for her.
Right. So she was raised in a hell and lived inside a hell in her mind.
Yeah.
And this is it's lucky that she didn't kill any more people.
Right.
Her children included, those poor
she
kids.
tried to kill, one baby, she put her on the railroad track and somebody saved her. And then another one she held under running water. There was more abuse in there.
Oh, of course.
Because her sister-in-law just happened to come across her when she was living with her. And she only lived with them for like 4 months.
Right.
So
all that other time in between.
Exactly. Years.
So at 3.6, she is number 4 out of the 12 people, the 12 dipshits that have killed someone or tortured someone. She is the 4th highest so far. I mean, just behind Joachim Kroll, Pedro Lopez, and Albert Fish. And as far as ladies, she is the highest, and not by far, because Linda Hazard killed quite a few.
Well, Linda Hazard was a cruel-ass bitch, too.
Yeah. Very much so. But what an interesting story. So that gives us a 3.6. Very high. Now let's talk about her notoriety.
Have you heard of this dipshit?
So as you guys know, we talk about notoriety before the trial, after they're caught, and then the infamy that is continuous.
Right.
And so she's pretty low. As far as overall, she's a 0.6. I mean, nobody knows who she is.
Right.
Before the trial, you gave her 1.0. Only a few families really knew what was going on.
That small town, yeah. But evidently, from what I understand about reading about this, is no one really took any interest in what was going on because it wasn't abnormal, except for when she started abusing her children. That's when people started paying attention. That's when they wanted to press charges. When she ran through town with an axe threatening to kill people.
Right.
you know.
Yeah.
So, but that town knew about it, but neighboring towns didn't.
Right.
You know,
She was their problem in Aberdeen.
Right.
So we gave her a 1.0. Very, very low. Nobody really knew.
Yeah.
After the trial, when the details came out, huge deal in Australia.
In
and
Australia.
actually, really, the whole world heard about it. But it was a quick-lived kind of thing.
Yeah.
Overall, we gave her a 2.5. But yeah, Australia, I think, still understands
Oh yeah,
her
I'm sure.
name.
Yep.
I'm sure there's,
they probably all know who she is.
I imagine so. But you guys can tell us. I know we have listeners there. You can tell us what she means to you
Yeah,
guys.
let us know. Did you know
Absolutely.
about this woman? And
Yeah.
how infamous is she in Australia?
Right. And so, yeah, we're coming from the American-centric mind.
Right.
And so our last part of it is the infamy. And we give her 1.5. And really, that's probably generous because
Yeah,
never heard
here
of
in
her.
the U.S. Yeah.
I mean, it takes Monique to research this. And
I stumbled across this woman in a special research thing that I was doing on cannibalism. And boy, do we have some good ones for you coming.
yeah, we got interesting,
But-
depraved creatures.
Yeah, I came across her, I want to say 4 or 5 years ago. Maybe even, no, it was longer than that because it was in Fremont. So, yeah.
Yeah, but so she's just not very popular. And for a good reason. She's not a multi-murderer, so
Right.
it's not that kind of huge threat to society. But
Yeah, but the one she
story-
did was a fucking doozy.
yeah, it's worth knowing about. It's definitely worth knowing about. All right, now let's check out our conclusions.
What do our dipshits think about this dipshit?
What a bitch.
What a terrible human.
There's not much more to say, really. I mean, she was just
Awful.
anyone that came in her
Awful.
path, she would destroy in
Yeah.
some way. Those children that came along,
Well,
all of
Mom
the mates.
said it right on that wedding day. There's
Yeah.
a screw loose with her.
But her mom's had a screw loose.
Yeah, she went out and
Her
she
dad had a screw loose.
beat her son-in-law.
Yeah.
Or no, she strangled her son-in-law in the car in front of his own mother.
Yeah.
Ugh.
That's good stuff. So my conclusion is that she was crazy from day one, in the sense that, crazy is such a basket term too. She had psychopathy from out of the gates. I think that's how that shit works. And then the thing that you can do for children that have really sociopathy, I think there's nothing you can do.
Do
if you have
whatever
a
they
psycho.
say and give them everything they
No,
want.
I mean, but it is be nice. Like, I think that's, honestly, I am not a
If they're-
psychologist, but I think
I agree with what you're saying. And
be as kind as possible.
I hear you. However, if you've got a psychopathic child, being kind is only going to get you so far.
Right. Oh, I get it. 100%.
Because they will
It's not going to, no.
fall off the deep end.
I say
they
that
will.
I say that because I do think that being cruel to a psychopath will make that psychopath, they're still going to be a psychopath whether you're nice or cruel to them. I think it makes it just that much worse. It's showing examples of how to be cruel. It's like an education in cruelty. That kind of thing.
Yeah, well, I
But
don't think you
know.
should be cruel to any living thing,
course not.
whether they're psychopathic or not.
Of course not. I
So-
agree with that too. But I mean,
If you cross paths with a psychopath, you're fucked.
right.
That is the long and the short of it. Don't
Yeah,
make
it's
eye
very-
contact. Don't feed it.
Right. Well, unless it's your child, then you must. It's tough. Imagine being a parent in that situation.
I can't.
It's happening right now to 3 million, or it's probably 1 million parents in the United States are dealing with a child that they are very keenly aware of is some sort of psychopathic,
Yeah.
narcissistic.
Oh, that would be so hard.
It-
Oh
it
wait, I
must
get
be hard.
I get narcissism
In
and
a psychopath,
sociopathy.
narcissists seem to go hand in hand with being
Sociopathy.
Yeah, it does. Or being a psycho, really.
Oh, a
like,
psycho.
It seems to me that not all narcissists are psychos, but all psychos are narcissistic on some level. But I don't know what I'm talking about, and I certainly don't want to start, pontificating things I don't know about. The little that I've learned about it, and from doing research on serial killers for Time Suck and in my own life and all those different things, and for this, it does seem like we don't know enough for sure.
Oh, absolutely.
But the narcissism seems to come where it gets dangerous narcissism, because narcissists tend to think of themselves as another species of person in general. Like they look down
Right.
at the lower species that is the rest of us. And I don't know. I mean, I feel like that's what you get with psychopaths too.
Oh, yeah.
'Cause that's why they're like, the laws don't apply to me, you peasants. That's the kind of vibe you get. So I don't know where I'm going with that, but fucking watch out for your fucking kids, because they just, if you got one of them that's a psycho, just love them.
Well-
Just do your best to love them and keep the knives away.
And the lesson is be nice.
And the lesson is never try. All right, my friends. I'd say we're going to tell you what's going to happen next week. It's going to be a serial killer. Mm-hmm. It's going to be a cannibal. Mm-hmm. Ish.
No, I'm sorry. Next week is not a cannibal.
No?
We've got a palate cleanser between cannibalistic natures with a serial killer.
Okay, we have a serial killer. But we're not going to tell you who he is.
No, I'm not going to say.
It is a male, though.
It is a boy.
But we are not going to tell you who it is.
He's a boy.
We'll tell you who it is when we fucking talk about it next week. And that's what we'll do. Or for you inside scoopers, all of you SkatCats, we'll probably tell you a little bit.
Odds are this month is just going to be
bad people.
True crime month.
Right.
Because I have stories and a reason why I'm going in this flow.
And at the end of the month, we'll tell you why that is, because I don't even know why. I'll find out, too. But so this has been our show. I've enjoyed it. Thank you, wife.
Thank you.
Been lovely. Thanks, Steve, in the booth for all the recording.
Yep. Thank you, Steve.
Tim, our stupid intern. I know he did a few things. Tim sucks. But big time.
At least he didn't unplug the computer this time.
Right. Or delete a file. Fucking Tim. Oh, well, I don't want to get in trouble for bullying when the last minute of our show. But
don't.
Thank you guys to all the Inside Scoopers, SkatCats, and Littermates in our litter box and Patreon. If you guys want to support a podcast, you know how to do it. That's the way. The other way to do it, punch a PayPal for some reason. I don't know. What do you think this is worth? A cup of coffee? Are we worth a cup of coffee? I don't know. But also you can go to our website. There's lots of dipshit merchandise there. .com, SkatCast.com. But thank you so much for listening.
Yes.
We'll talk at you in the future. It'll seem like the present.
Thank you.
Dipshit Files.
Bing bong.